Andy Garicani and I are acquainted, and many, many months ago, he called me up and said, Steve, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. I'm doing fine. What's going on? Yeah, I'm busy. He said, I'd like to meet this guy named Eric Early. I said, who? He said, Eric Early. I said, okay, I got some time. He's running for Attorney General. Oh, yeah, right. So we met at the California Club, and I was immediately taken with his grasp of the issues and his sense of perspective, and the fact that he's actually an excellent lawyer. And this is in stark contrast to the current Attorney General, who, when you read his ballot statement, is kind of misleading, but he talks about having been a Deputy Attorney General, and now he leads that office. Well, he didn't mention he was there only for like 8 months as a Deputy Attorney General, like a baby Deputy Attorney General. And you look at what he says, what Mr. Becerra says, what he has to advance, and you read Eric Early's statement, this is a clear choice. The problem is a lot of Californians don't read ballot statements. They don't know the candidates. They don't compare them in terms of their qualities, their abilities, and their experience. That office, from my perspective, having been LA County DA for 12 years and with that agency for 40 years, the Attorney General's office is in disarray. And the people that do the work every day are not happy. They're not happy because they're not being led by a real lawyer. They're being led by a guy with an ideological agenda, and he's making them pursue that agenda. And for a guy like Becerra, who's been in Congress for, 16 terms?
Something like that.
Something like
Since
that.
91.
Since 1991, who's not practiced law during the entire time, to be heading a significant law office, chief law enforcement officer, defend the state of California, advance consumer interests, to have functionally a non-lawyer lead that office is a disgrace, and I think it hurts the mission of that office in terms of what they're trying to achieve in California. So you have this long-term, committed politician who has, by the way, not been active with the California State Bar since 1991. That means he's not paid his dues, financially or otherwise, not practiced law, and very importantly, not taken the mandatory continuing legal education requirements required of attorneys that they must do every year, which has not even been trained for the last 1991 to 2007, 26 years. So when you look at the fundamentals, qualifications, experience, being a real lawyer, there's no choice. Eric Early for Attorney General, that's what I say. From that initial moment I met Eric, I was impressed. And as his campaign has developed and grown and matured, and I've worked with him more on different issues, I have become overwhelmed with my admiration for someone like Eric who's going to stand up and fight this battle against what may seem to be insurmountable odds because it's the right thing to do. So Eric, I wish you the very best.
Thank you so much, Steve. Thank you. California is in serious trouble. All right? We've had this one-party rule up there in Sacramento now for eons. And Sacramento is out of control. And they've become arrogant up there. And you could see it in the bills that they're sending out that they pass. They think they can get away with anything. You know, I was waiting for the right person to step up for this, and I didn't see that happen. I've never been a politician in my life. But I just thought, somebody's got to step up, and I stepped up for this. And I'll tell you, being a candidate is one of the great experiences of my life so far. Speaking of their arrogance, they passed this sanctuary state bill. And what this bill is doing Really, the name Sanctuary State Bill is a misnomer. It's just a misrepresentation like so much that comes out of there. It should be called the Illegal Alien Felon Protection Act. Because that's the only thing that act is being used for. It's being used to protect people who came here illegally and that have been committing crimes, oftentimes violent crimes, repeated crimes, and it is protecting them. And they have no better protector in this state than this guy who's got the job, Mr. Becerra. And so what we have now is we have this prairie fire that's growing. It's starting in Southern California. People are either opting out of this law, cities, counties, jurisdictions, they're voting to opt out of the law. Or they're voting to join in Jeff Sessions' lawsuit against the sanctuary state law, which I came out and supported right away because the sanctuary state law is just unconstitutional. It violates the U.S. Constitution. It violates the supremacy clause of the U.S. Constitution. And our state officials and our state attorney general and this fellow DeLeon up there should not be violating the Constitution. They are the George Wallaces of our day, bucking what the federal government is supposed to control, which is immigration. It's a big deal, and it's gaining support all around this state, and it's galvanizing Republicans and people of all other parties. It's one of the reasons I'm running. In fact, when I heard last year, when I woke up and heard we're going to be a sanctuary state, I think that was the tipping point for me to determine this is enough. And then we have these prison emptying bills, one by one by one. They're letting violent criminals out long before their sentences expire. Mr. Becerra, Mr. DeLeon, the others are creating a criminal's paradise in this state. I speak to law enforcement up and down this state, and they're apoplectic about these bills. Proposition 47 was sold to us as the Safe Neighborhoods and Schools Act. People go to the polls, they see that. Yeah, I want safe neighborhoods and schools. What they were not told was that they were now letting people steal up to $950 and not get prosecuted. And that's what we have in this state now. And oh, by the way, who drafts that ballot and title summary for these propositions? The Attorney General's office. Ms. Harris lied to the people when she drafted that bill, did the same thing with Proposition 57, and Mr. Becerra has been following suit on the effort to repeal the gas tax. The last person in the state of California that should be making these misrepresentations to the voters is the Attorney General. But they're arrogant and they think they can keep getting away with it, and they're not going to keep getting away with it. Other things that Mr. Becerra is not doing, which means a tremendous amount to me. I call it the three-headed scourge of severe mental illness, homelessness, and prescription drug abuse. Mr. Becerra, in his, really, to me, he's Nancy Pelosi in the Attorney General's office, is what he is. He's a political hack. He's been in office a little over a year. He's filed 30 lawsuits against the federal government. He doesn't care about mental illness, homelessness, prescription drug abuse. How do I know he doesn't care about it? He hasn't done a thing about it. All those things go to public safety. I care deeply about these issues. We got to start with an Attorney General that cares about it. And then you get up there and you can marshal the resources of that office to start dealing with these problems. Everybody in Los Angeles knows, and in other parts of the state, we have 10 cities all around this state right now with people living on the street. It's becoming like Afghanistan. We need to do something about it. So, these are the reasons I stepped up. I've been an attorney for 25 years. I started at Patty's firm. I was there for 15 years, and I did learn just about everything from Patty and my other partners there. And then 8 years ago, myself and 4 of my young partners decided we just wanted to try it on our own. Billy Wright's here. Billy, where are you? One of my partners. Scott Geiser. Brian Sullivan, my other partner who couldn't make it tonight, who happens to be a staunch Democrat. Don't tell anybody he's supporting me in this race. We went out, we started on our own. We started with 7 lawyers total. I was a managing partner since day one. We're up to 25 lawyers now. We represent all the largest title insurance companies in the nation. We represent businesses, big and small. We represent individuals. We fight for our clients all over the state of California, all over Nevada, all over Arizona, all over Utah, all over Florida. We protect people who, there are these fraud rings that try and literally steal their homes. It's crazy what's going out there. We've represented many of those people. I'm very honored to, so I'm a real lawyer, all right? This guy, Mr. Becerra, as Steve was saying, this is not a real lawyer. I don't think he's ever taken a deposition in his life. I don't think he's ever fought a motion in his life. Yeah, he's got a law degree. He came out of law school ages ago. He did 2 years of legal aid. He went into politics. He never looked back. As Steve said, he was an inactive member of the bar for over 20 years. We can't have this make-believe politician in that office. We need a real lawyer in that office. And I'm the only real lawyer in this race. So I've got a great family, and I'm very blessed to have my son Alex here tonight. Alex and my daughter-in-law Maggie here tonight. Alex, and then we have Lauren, my daughter, who's 26, who couldn't make it tonight because she's out in Joshua Tree doing something, playing music tonight. Alex is an incredibly successful businessman in his own right. He started the Early Airway in his dorm room, a private charter airline company, and Alex has a client list that would make any lawyer's head just explode. I want that client list one day, Alex. And Lauren is on the other side of the aisle. Lauren plays lead guitar in a rock and roll band. Lauren's about this big. She's tough as nails. She's the smartest one in the family by far. She toured Europe, 30 cities and 35 nights with her band this summer. I went and saw them play in Prague and Berlin. And so she got the talent that I never got. And if I didn't have her this life, I'd be following her around the world playing, but she would not like that. So, you know, my dad, both of my parents were legal immigrants to this country. My dad came in 1936. My mom came a few years later. My dad, at 17 years old, enrolled in the, enlisted in the Marines. He was a grunt. They sent him right off to North Korea, and he was in combat in the Battle of the Chosin Reservoir, which is, for history buffs and military history buffs, that was quite a battle. And he got a Purple Heart. He came home, luckily, and started a family. And I grew up in a really solid middle-class home. And my parents instilled in me, as legal immigrants to this country, a love of this country, because they just loved this country and everything about it, and they knew from the perspective that they came from. This honor we have, this incredible nation we live in, and it's why people like me are fighting to preserve what we have, because we know the end game of where these maniacs in Sacramento will take this country. And we as a country cannot be in that end game. And isn't it the ultimate irony that if they get what they want, then the first people that get persecuted by the government they want to create is going to be them, is going to be the journalists, is going to be the minorities, it's going to be the artists, the intellectuals, all the people that are fighting us to try and protect this life for all of them and all of us. And so, you know, these are the reasons I stepped up. Not a politician. So when I came out, I put together this great team of political professionals behind me. Andy Garicani, who's over there in the back. Andy's very unassuming, but Andy is one of the powers in Republican politics in the state of California. You know, I went up with Andy to the state capitol soon after I started this race, and all the Republican legislators are rolling out the red carpet for Andy. And so by the time I walked out, I was endorsed by the state Republican leader, Pat Bates. I was endorsed by Senator Scott Wilk, Senator Jeff Stone, 3 state assemblymen. And we've just been growing this momentum ever since I got in this race. And this race can be won. You know, I am the only person in the center in this race. There's one Republican who's far right, There's no way he can win in a statewide basis. Becerra, I compare to Pelosi, and this other guy, Dave Jones, is like, he's the Bernie Sanders wing of the party, and they're starting to fight each other. This race can be won. I'm getting a great message all around the state, and I want to make it clear with the sanctuary state law, we're not talking about going after the mom and pops that have come here illegally but have not been breaking the law since they got here and have been trying to raise their kids and become part of the American society. We want to go after the criminals who've come here and committed violent crimes. I do believe that we have to secure our borders because we cannot, as a state and as a nation, afford an endless influx of illegal immigration. I've seen numbers that says our state is paying $20 billion a year to take care of these people. And yet Mr. Becerra does not believe in borders. Mr. Kevin DeLeon does not believe in borders. Come here, but come here legally. And every American will open their arms to them. So, you know, and I'm speaking to law enforcement up and down the state, sheriffs, chiefs, rank and file. These are some of the bravest, most incredible and smartest people you will ever meet, and they never get a fair shake when something happens or in the media. You never hear about the 50,000 great things they do every day. You got to hear about the one thing that goes wrong. So, yeah. So we need a common sense Republican in Sacramento. We need somebody that's going to be a loud voice up there, especially if this guy Gavin Newsom wins as governor and he's leading, because he makes Jerry Brown look like Ronald Reagan, all right? He is just off the deep end, as are Becerra, as are Dave Jones. So I want to thank everybody for coming. I want to thank everybody for your support, because this is the mother's milk of politics, are your donations. And we're fighting the good fight here. This race can be won. So thank you everybody for coming. This gentleman here, back in the day, I don't know how many centuries ago, but he was a king somewhere. All right? And so thank you everybody for coming.
Good job.